With the big winter storm that recently rolled through the US, a lot of people got reminded of something that we talk about on the channel all the time. Your power can disappear fast, and it's only a problem if you're not prepared. So we wanted to take a second today to make sure that next time this happens, you are prepared. So welcome back to the lab where our opinions cannot be bought. Today we're talking about home backup essentials, not power your entire house like nothing happened. If you're trying to run central AC, an electric furnace, the bigger things, you're gonna need a bigger kit, and that's an entirely different video. This is just keeping the essentials on, keeping your food from spoiling, your Wi-Fi going, some lights on, maybe a CPAP if you need one. Basic necessities to get you through. That's it, that's the goal. So before we get into it, to make sure everyone is on the same page, we need to understand one thing very clearly. People often ask, how powerful is the unit? What the real question should be is, how long will it run the things I actually care about? Something that a lot of units have a problem with is idle consumption. They use a lot more power than they advertise just being on. Just turning it on and letting it be there, it's consuming power, and in some cases, it's a lot. And our entire job here at the lab is to eliminate those as options and make sure that you guys get the best bang for your buck. So the two things that really matter are the output wattage. What can it handle all at once? Basically, can it handle the appliances you want to power? And battery capacity. So that's where you're looking at your watt hours or kilowatt hours, which is how many days will it last powering the things I want to run. A lot of people see big wattage numbers and they get excited and they purchase a product, and then they realize it doesn't last as long as they expected it to because they just misunderstood the goal. So here's a realistic essentials list. It's pretty similar to ones that we've used in the past. We're going to account for things like your fridge. When the power goes out, you want to make sure your food doesn't spoil. We've done real world testing on multiple fridges. We have a whole video on it. The average fridge uses about 1,300 watt hours per day. Let's say you want to keep on some lights so you can see. We'll estimate about 100 watt hours per day. Phone charging, it's about 20 watt hours a day. And maybe you have a CPAP. So a CPAP on the higher end runs 100 watts and you sleep for about 8 hours a night. We're gonna throw that in as about 800 watt hours. And the biggest asterisk of this whole thing is heat and AC. We're gonna leave it out of this equation. We've put it in other equations before, but it really depends what you're using and how much power it's gonna consume. A big Texas-sized air conditioner will just eat your batteries alive. Mini splits are pretty decent. If you have an electric furnace, don't try to run it off batteries. If you have a gas furnace, it's actually relatively easy to run. It's just the fan, doesn't take a whole lot of power. We have entire videos on that stuff. Today, we're just gonna keep it with the essentials. Basically, when you're doing this math, prepare for where you actually live. The strategy behind what you're buying matters as much as the product. In the last year, we have reviewed a lot of product on the channel, and something that was recently released and stood out to us a lot was this Bluetti Apex 300. It has a 2,764 watt hour battery and a 3,840 watt inverter. And this unit is simple. It's not trying to be anything that it isn't. It's meant to set it and forget it, and that's why we love it. We have an entire video on this if you want to go check it out on the channel, but basically they just dumbed it down, took away all the unnecessary ports and plugs that you really don't need, and made a unit that's meant for home backup, but can also be great if you want to take it to a cabin, tailgating, that kind of thing. The one thing that we really like about this is for a 240 volt unit, it has a very low idle consumption of only 20 watts per hour. If you were to go back and look at the last blackout video we did, we used the Anker F3800, and it had an idle consumption of about 80 watts, which is a lot. It's also expandable and relatively affordable, meaning you can start with just one unit. And if you want to expand your storage, you can add one battery, you can add multiple batteries. You can kind of buy this and then grow with it as your needs grow. And this brings us to the part that everybody actually cares about. How many days is this thing gonna last? So the first thing you need to do to find out how many days this is gonna last you is do the math on your essentials. Most people, it's about 2,000 to 3,000 watt hours per day just for the essentials. In our example that we gave you earlier with the fridge, phone, and the CPAP and the lights, it's about 2,220 watt hours per day. It just depends on how strict you are. If you just need your fridge and minimal lights, you can really get that number down. If you say you're strict, but you have no self-discipline, it's gonna be a bit of a bigger number. Second step is match your daily needs to the storage or battery capacity of a power station. and factor in realism. In this case, this has a 2,760 watt hour battery, but using 20 watts an hour just idling is 480 watt hours per day just being on. You also need to factor in normal human behavior. You might get a little greedy. You might want to make a coffee or do a couple of things and use a little bit more power than you actually plan for. So just put a little bit of extra buffer room in there. Regardless, we kept this super conservative, and here's what that means for your 1, 2, or 3 day plan. If you're using this for an essentials unit, in our example, one day, you could basically get away with just using one unit. If you take the 2,764 watt hours of battery in this unit, minus the 480 watt hours of idle consumption, you get 2,280 watt hours of usable power, which means in this case, it just about covers the 2,220 watt hours we determined you're gonna need in the example with the fridge and the CPAP and the lights and all that stuff.
Great math.
Basically, if you didn't have a CPAP, you'd be in the clear to even just start using more lights and TVs and all that kind of stuff during the day with a unit like this. If you do have a CPAP, you'll still make it. You just don't have that wiggle room for TV and a bunch of lights all day long. And then going into the second day, every day on top of one day is basically just adding an expansion battery in the case of the Apex 300. So for 2 days, you're gonna use one unit and one B300 expansion battery. The expansion batteries, you don't have to factor in the idle consumption. You get the full capacity because just the power station is using the idle. So you actually get a bonus 480 watt hours of actual usable battery capacity with every battery that you add. Whereas with the unit, the 2,700 and whatever, you're losing 400 if you have it running for 24 hours. But that B300 battery is the exact same battery capacity as the unit, so you basically get double. And then if you were gonna go for 3 days, we would actually recommend going with the B500 expansion battery. Reason being is it's a little bit of a better deal. You get a bigger battery for a little bit more money. And then instead of needing 2 of the B300 batteries, you just need 1 B500. And it covers you for all 3 days. You have more than enough battery capacity and you don't have to spend as much as you would on 2 of the 300s. That's also assuming that you're not charging this unit at all. If you had access to maybe a small generator that you could use to run a little bit of power into this, you could maybe make just the one unit or one unit and a battery last you as long as you need. The reality is Bluetti makes it so that you could stack a ton of batteries on this, but I don't think that most people are actually gonna scale a system that big. What I think comes next for most people, even with just one expansion battery, is your recharging plan. This is the part that most people skip. The smartest plan isn't buying infinite batteries, it's having a good way to recharge the batteries that you have. Solar is the best option if you live somewhere where the sun is reliable. So Bluetti builds solar inputs directly into their power stations. You can plug solar directly into this unit right here. But if you really want to capitalize on that sunshine and those solar panels, Bluetti sells something called the Solar 4K, which allows you to significantly increase the amount of solar you can actually put into this, which is great. If you have a couple expansion batteries, you can really make sure that if you only have a couple hours of sunshine, you're fully charging not just the unit, but those batteries as well. So basically with the SolarX 4K, you could have this plus the B5000, which is your 3-day option, and you could recharge that whole system in 2 hours with solar, which is pretty good. That gives you like 3 days of runway. And then when you have the sun out, you can recharge in just 2 hours for another 3 days of runway. But in case the sun isn't out where you live, in our case, we would rely on something like a small generator. You can plug this into the generator, use the generator's power to charge it up. And the pro to that is when you have a generator running and you have, blackout and you're trying to keep like your sump pump on, the generator is running 24/7. The sump pump comes on very intermittently. You have something like this, you use the generator for 2 hours. In that time, you charge up your unit, then you can turn the generator off and you don't have to listen to it running all day long. You can literally turn it on for 2 hours a day, keep your system topped up and run it essentially infinitely as long as you have access to gas. So if you want a calm, practical outage plan, start with your fridge, add the devices that you actually think you're gonna need, and then, account for a little bit of wiggle room just in case, and make sure you watch our video on the product that you think you're gonna get to learn what the idle consumption might be and how much of a bigger system you may actually need than what you think just based on the website. Otherwise, that is pretty much all we got for you guys today. We will catch you in the next one. Make sure you're subscribed if you are not already. Thank you so much for watching. Peace out. and stay charged.